Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast, where we're helping leaders live with integrity.
Whether you're a mom or a CEO, you're a leader, and how you lead matters.
Well, we are here today to talk about the healthy body image. I am so excited because I have my friend Marina Mitchell. She has also been a trainer of mine. I have stalked her for years, going to all of her fitness classes. But more than that, Marina has such an impact on every woman and man that she connects with. She's just a woman of great integrity. She's a leader. And there's so much to her that we're going to talk about today and the wisdom that you've gathered over the years. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yes, thank you. I am happy and honored to be here as well. My name is Marina Mitchell, and first and foremost, I am a child of God, Jesus' daughter, and that's where I start every day, up in his lap, and make sure I'm aligned with what he wants me to do, and that keeps me focused and completely surrendered and full of trust with him. I am a wife of over 26 years. I have two, I hate to say grown kids, but they really are grown.
They're grown
It's
up.
crazy how fast all that happens. I am a fitness professional and absolutely love what I do. I'm honored to be able to bring together this call I have for encouragement and then my love for fitness. It seems kind of crazy, actually, that those two things can live together so well. And I feel like God just keeps using it. So I just ride in the wave and very thankful.
He does keep using it, and it's exactly why I wanted to have this dialogue with you today, because I just think there's so many things. You're a little bit different than maybe a typical trainer, fitness professional. So tell us what that really means. What's a fitness professional? How'd you get into this career?
Yes, well, that's loaded, right? I think it comes from lots of different motivations or places. For me, I have been an athlete my whole life and done sports and was a gym goer. Can I say that? Went to classes. I love group fitness because I'm an extrovert. So I love people and always wanted to exercise with people. So finally, how old was I? Maybe 25 or so. And I had someone say, okay, it's your turn. You are done being our participant, and now you need to be the leader or the instructor. So I had a gal kind of take me under her wing, and it was fantastic. I have been teaching classes ever since. But when it comes to me and personally my body image and kind of how I dove into even athleticism or the struggle, with body image. When I was 17, I had a rough breakup. And what happened, literally, my body could not take in food. I was so upset and my stomach just kind of shut down. Well, what happened after 3 or 4 weeks of that is I lost a significant amount of weight. And coming from a heftier family genetic, I had never felt skinny before.
Yeah.
And people commented clearly, right, that I had lost a lot of weight. And it was always a compliment. It's funny how people don't compliment you or say anything when you have gained weight.
But they funny. We're going to talk about that.
Yes, they often will comment that you've lost weight, and it's always a compliment. I think whether good or bad, people compliment others when they lose weight. And
of course, cultural norm.
It is our cultural norm, and I think that's part of our problem, actually. And I honestly, I liked it. I liked how it felt. But the problem was I got that size from not eating. So clearly that was unsustainable. So as soon as I started eating again and finding a little bit of health, I lived in fear of gaining the weight back.
Yeah.
And so that began kind of my own personal journey. And I will say probably some unhealthy habits of going to the gym far too often and for too long. And I think that's part of my compassion for other people, is that what motivates a lot of people to eat right and to go to the gym are very bad motives that put us a lot in the shame corner, is what I call it. We want to climb into the shame corner because we feel bad about ourselves. So then we take on these healthy activities, which are amazing and what our bodies are supposed to do, but we take them on for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Now it's the beginning of 2020, And this is on the forefront of every advertisement. I mean, it's the marketing around us, and everybody is setting their goals and they're thinking about what weight do I want to lose? How do I want to eat healthy? What's the exercise regime I'm going to get on? And so I love how you're looking at motive and how you saw two different frameworks. So the original motive was out of fear.
Right.
And what would you say your motivation, because you've lived a life of this.
Yes.
So what's the motivation now?
Yeah. Well, 23 years later, still teaching classes and being in the fitness industry. And for a lot of people, the fitness industry actually is, it's a tough spot to be because you're constantly competing with other people.
I can imagine that.
Well, and I think the beauty and what God has done in me, right, as His Spirit has taught me and matured me, I mean, I'm sure I compare myself to other people sometimes, but that's not where I live. It doesn't drag me down, actually. I don't think about it very often. So what I would say drives a lot of people to exercise and healthy eating is fear, like you said, but vanity. So we talk a lot about, in my classes, I will talk clearly about vanity. Okay, so some of you are here just because you want to look good in your swimsuit. Others of you are here for other health reasons. And so I really try to focus on that for whatever reason that has resonated with hundreds of people. And they thank me pretty much. I think I got thanked 3 times just this week. I taught 6 classes, and individuals will thank me because they feel empowered as a human being in my classes, which honestly is it's an honor and a privilege for me. It's almost as if what God is teaching me and what He's doing in me, I get to share. And obviously, I don't get to talk about God in my classes. That would be inappropriate. But as I've always said, just like sweat, I think Jesus and the Spirit can ooze out of us and out of our pores. And I hold on to John 7:38 has been my scripture for years, over a decade, that when we follow Jesus, the streams of living water flow out of us. Yeah. And so I hold to that because, one, I want to be a great witness for Him, right, and representative, and I want to bring glory to Him and others to Him. But also because His characteristics in us, they change people. And the people may not know where that's coming from, but they feel the Spirit. They feel God. And so when I'm able to talk about really what are biblical concepts when it comes to healthy body image, people feel it and they appreciate it, I think, which is awesome.
They do. And I have to tell you, I don't know if you remember or not, but I came to your class not knowing you were a believer. I knew nothing about you. And yet I was one of those participants. I could tell. I mean, the Spirit in me, Holy Spirit was very aware. I was like, oh my goodness, this is different. And I had taken a lot of classes, and I am always kind of a groupie. I like to be in a group. I'm competitive.
Right.
So it helps me to work harder when I got someone next to me.
Yes.
And I remember that in your class. I think I even came up and told you. I said, you were right where you're supposed to be, because I could just see how God was using you. He was oozing out of you without ever mentioning His name, like Queen Esther, who never mentions God, but just her whole confidence of knowing what He's doing.
So I think that would be a sidebar, if I could throw anything in here for people listening, that often we can reduce what we do, that if it's not quote unquote ministry, it doesn't feel like we're being effective for God and His kingdom. And so these little, these jobs that we have, we can ooze out wherever. And I am meant to stand on a stage with a microphone on and jump around, in spandex. And it seems really silly sometimes. And yet, thank you for saying that. And I think that there are lots of people listening right now who feel like, God, what I do seems so silly. But the Spirit is huge, and He needs us in the workplace.
He needs us everywhere.
Yes. Yeah. So in the fitness industry is where I've landed. And it is definitely my honor to try and encourage people in health, honestly. I think as believers, I've seen it swing both ways, that as believers and Christians, we can often feel like exercise and eating right is all about vanity. Therefore, I'm not going to have anything to do with that because I am living for Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. What that does, I will say, can swing you into gluttony. So I have, that might be a strong word, but I see that people wanting to feel free, right? And living in freedom, but it can swing you into doing things that actually are not good for you. So there's so many studies out right now that what we eat absolutely determines how we feel, our gut health, our mental stability, all of that. And if we're dehydrated and if we're eating only processed foods, we will absolutely feel different. So that is honestly, if I could encourage people, I would say, let's do a mind shift. Let's shift our mind away from exercising and eating right because it's going to make us look better in our clothes or our swimsuit. And let's shift into, I want to do this because I want to be the best version of what God made that I could be.
I love that. And as a mental health professional, that is something we talk about all the time in the counseling room. We're not working out and I'm not helping them with their diet, but we're talking about the impact of their hormones and what they're feeding, even down to how many cups of coffee did you have? I mean, I have to ask myself that because I'm like, wow, I'm feeling really anxious today. Did I drink anything?
Right.
What did I eat? Did I even eat? Because if I don't eat, my anxiety goes through the roof. So all those habits, what we put in our body, are so profound, and God was so clever in how he created us. We just now have science that's backing it up in a way that his word kind of helped us with originally, right? And I love that because you bring grace into the process, Marina. That's what I'm hearing in this. It's looking at the underlining motive. If you trust that you're valuable, if you trust that you're lovable, that you're worthy of being cared for, then you might consider maybe stepping in. So let's talk about the person who's like, I really want to, but every time I do, I fail. I start in January,
right?
And by January 4th, I'm off. I'm done. What would you say to them? Because I would say I've been in that category before. I remember running a marathon. That makes me sound amazing, but I'm not. I ran a marathon out of obedience. I do a lot of things out of obedience first.
Yes.
Of like, God's asking me to do it. And I'm like, are you crazy? And he's like, I'm God. So listen to me, trust me. What that marathon training did for me, it was before children, but it helped me in so many ways in what I was going to be doing as a therapist, working in trauma and abuse recovery and sexual betrayal recovery and birthing my children and walking through all of these hardships. That marathon had set me into a place that said, I can do this. I am resilient because of you in me. And all that practice played out in real life.
Absolutely.
So it reframed exercise completely for me, and it set me on a trajectory that was like, it's a training, just like the word says. So that helped me with a reframe. But that doesn't help everybody else. It's not always motivating for someone to be like, you want me to go do a marathon, Tara? No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, but what I think you're getting to, and I tell my classes actually this all the time and my kids, everything worth having is hard work.
Yeah.
Everything worth having. So you think of a strong body, that takes hard work. You think of a solid marriage, right? I've been married over 26 years. That is not a fluke, and we are not lucky, right? Mm-hmm. We have worked very hard. Raising kids was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, given my tumultuous past. But it's amazing. It's worth it, but I had to put the work in. So I think the bigger question for people who are trying to change habits are, what is it that I want? And that I think it all has to come back down to this motivation. What is my motivation? If it's to just be skinny, I promise it will all fall away because we don't care that much, let's be honest, right? I mean, when you go in your bathing suit, when do we ever do that, right? And we can find clothes that hide things.
True.
So if it's just about vanity, I find that the motivation seeps away pretty quickly. So I would encourage people to think about how do they want to feel? What do they really want? There's something incredibly empowering, like what you said about training. So it's if you've never done it, you don't quite understand it, but something mental happens when you push yourself through things you don't want to do. And I think pretty much anyone can resonate with that, right? We've all done things that we're like, oh, I don't really want to do that. But as you do it and push through it, it's incredibly empowering. So in general, I would say it's all a mindset. In my classes, I talk a lot about exercise, for the most part, happens above your neck. Because as soon as you believe you can do it, your body typically will achieve it.
That's true neuroscience-wise, too.
There you go.
Yeah, what we tell ourselves impacts
that's
our
right.
entire system.
Yes. So if we go into the new year and say, oh, this is just all about the pounds, and when I step on the scale, we're already setting ourselves up for failure. So really it is about habits. What kind of habits? How do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? Because setting goals, like I ran a half marathon and now you're super amazing. I'm only kind of amazing.
I did it once.
Oh boy. Yeah, I only did one too. And that's a lot. And what I kept saying to myself over and over is this the mind game? I'm actually stronger than I think I am. And so I need to just dig deep and find what are my motives? Why am I doing this? So encourage people, find something way deeper than looking good in your jeans, because it just doesn't last. Yeah.
Yeah. And, it reminds me of the scripture in Philippians that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And Paul was in jail when he wrote that. I mean, so the hardships that he was going through, that's what that's about.
Right.
I can do this even when it's really hard. What you're saying there, Marina, reminds me so much of a systemic issue that I'm passionate about, especially through Courageous Girls and Living Wholehearted and helping leaders live with integrity. We like to take the shortcuts. We like to take the path of least resistance. And everything that you said, from marriage to a strong body, means hard work. And we've lost that. We like everything fast. And even our diets are fast and furious.
Yes.
I have to admit, I struggled with bulimia. That's part of my story in the book I wrote. And the body image issue is close to my heart. But the reality was, I didn't want to go through hard emotions. So I found shortcuts.
Yes.
Through eating and making me feel better. And then I'd feel shame. So I'd go work out and I'd get a quick dopamine fix. And it was just this yo-yo back and forth. And so I had to learn how to actually do the hard of feeling what I was feeling. And that application has gone hand in hand with the workouts. And the kind of trainer you are is saying, you can do this. It's hard. Versus let's find the fastest and easiest route to get to the goal that you need to get. Right. There is something profound, both biblically and how we're wired as people, that we've lost as a culture. Does that resonate with you? Or?
Absolutely. And actually, and to be totally frank and honest with the listeners, I absolutely love exercise. So I know there are a lot of people who hate it.
That's true. I do too. So
okay. So I know. So I'm sorry, all of you who are listening, who are like, oh, you stupid girl. I hate exercise. I do have people in my life that would rather like pull all of their eyelashes out than sit on a bike that goes nowhere, which is one of my favorite things to do. So I want to put that out there. I love exercise.
Good clarifier.
Yeah. And I've been doing it for over 30 years. So it's something that is inbred in me. I love it. It feeds me. I don't actually have to work quite that hard. So I want to say that. However, I don't always want to exercise. But there are areas in my life that I have had to do what you're saying, this long suffering, when I just want, and I'll have to say it is parenting. Parenting has been incredibly challenging for me. And I wanted to do A and B because I read a book, right, that said if you do A plus B, you're going to get C. And I wasn't getting the result. And I was asking God for years and years and years, all the years I was raising my kids was very challenging, and I was making decisions on a daily basis that was best for my kids, and I knew it, but it put me in like a sacrificial state almost daily. And looking back, I'm so thankful God gave me the strength every day to make those decisions, even though I didn't want to. It probably would have been easier for me just to go to work and have someone else kind of raise my kids. Although I will say there too, I would have lived with a bunch of guilt. Man, there is no right answer when it comes to parenting. I will just say for some people, I do watch people and they enjoy that so much. And I think, wow, I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, we're all so different. I know what you mean.
Say that. Okay, because I love my kids.
It was more of
I'm very close to that.
The suffering part was it was a choice.
It was a choice every
like exercise for many out there.
Exactly.
It's not like, yippee, I'm going to the gym.
Yes. And where a lot of people are like, yay, I get to spend all day with 2 toddlers. And I'm like, I think I would rather go to the cheese factory. I'm not sure. But that was very difficult for me. But I knew that's what I was supposed to do. So I think sometimes, like you say, our culture wants the fast fix. They want it to be easy. We do look at people, and here is the mind shift I think a lot of us have to take. We look at people who are naturally thin and they don't have to really exercise and they kind of can eat what they want, and we get mad at them and we think that that is the way it should be for us, right? And I can say that with eating and exercise. I can say that with parenting. I did that for 15 years.
And marriages.
Yes.
And every
jobs.
As women, we particularly I think men do too.
Yeah, I do too.
Now that I say that out loud.
I know. Yeah. So looking at and saying, oh, I wish that. And then all of a sudden we're believing these lies. And the lies are saying, yeah, you should have that. How dare you not have that? And so we're living from this sense of trying to make things right, or really we just live from a sense of bitterness that we don't have that. And again, I don't have that necessarily with eating right and exercise. I have reaped the benefits of doing both for so many years that I no longer have to talk myself into it. Honestly, it comes a lot more naturally.
You know the outcome.
I do. And I feel so much better when I'm drinking all the water I'm supposed to drink and when I'm staying away from blah, 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 or whatever it does to my body. And, we could get a whole hour in of, what different foods and chemicals do inside of our body, what movement does to us, and how we are supposed to move. I was just telling my class actually this week about an elderly gal that I know, and she's actually not that elderly, but she does not like to exercise, and she hasn't ever in her whole life. And in her early 60s, she's struggling a lot with bone density. So she has fallen twice in the last 2 years and broken bones from just a fall. And this recently just happened, and her doctor diagnosed her with osteoporosis. So a lot of things we talk about in my classes in particular are, yes, some of you might be here so you look good in your swimsuit, but let me tell you what else is happening, right? Your musculature is getting strong enough to hold your bones. And then when you fall, your muscles can actually take over. Not to mention that all of the resistance training and impact training you're doing is increasing your bone density, right? So that when you fall or when we trip, which we do all the time, we're not going to have damaging effects because our body, our proprioception, right, which is our neurological system firing all of our connective tissues, is going to catch us, and it's not going to blow out a muscle or break a bone. So when we think of those deeper things of what happens when we, and not just go to the gym, right? I mean, I'm an extrovert, so I want to go to the gym. I love it. I love music and people. But there are a lot of people out there who can just work out at home. Anything that you can do to move your body and feed it what it needs to be the best version of yourself. I feel like those are the things that we need to remember, that it's not about a perfect body. And I think as we age, we let go of that a little bit more. But I do, I'm in my 40s, and there are a lot of people my age who have given up. Literally, they're like, yeah, it just hurts to move, so I'm just going to forget it, and I'm just going to eat whatever I want. And they don't feel good. They don't feel good.
There's a major cost to that as well.
There
a different
is.
kind of suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think people just have to choose, on which side do you want to land? Because the pendulum does swing, and we go back and forth. All of us go back and forth.
Let me just say before we wrap up, I have a couple clarifying questions for you, and then we'll pick up in part 2, because there's so many things you're saying that I think the listeners want to hear more about. We can talk about developing those healthy habits, maybe even not just about your body, but maybe what are some of those healthy habits you've developed in your marriage. And you talked about the discipline of getting up every morning and spending time with Jesus, so that that is part of the training that I hear you're doing. And I can imagine the times in your life when that wasn't happening. So I want to talk a little bit more about that for our listeners. But as we wrap up this part, I'm thinking about the times I've been in your classes, and you had said things like, this is helping you do life. And I think I'm on 5 acres of property. I have a husband who's a project guy. We run a lodge and retreat. We have lots of things we've had to do over the years. And honestly, Marina, all the things that I was able to help my husband with out here is because of all the hard work I was doing in your classes. And I thought about that as I'm lifting up big boulders as his helpmate partner. I'm thinking, what women can do this?
Seriously.
It was seriously blowing me away. And then I wouldn't have injuries, or I'd recover really fast. And I just would think, I'd hear your voice and be like, this is why. Less about my swimsuit look and more about, it just felt good to feel so strong and to contribute and to not have all the side effects that I could have.
Right.
The recovery of injuries, all those things. So the motivation, and for me personally, my motivation is I live such an intense life in emotional pain and help and teaching and writing, and that to match that with that physical release. So that's what I want you to end with a little bit. You're talking about moving your body. How much do we need to move our body? And the power of what releases or what changes.
Well, I think the really good news is there's so many different ways to move. So you have to choose movement that you like, or at least can suffer through better. How about that? For the people who hate exercising. So walking, jogging, biking, dancing. A lot of people love dancing. That's amazing cardiovascular activity. We can do body weight exercises that can increase our bone density. What is best to do, of course, is resistance training with additional weight. Doing that a couple of times a week, trying to focus on just the major muscle groups. So those of you who don't know anything really about your muscles, lower body, thinking of the quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes, right? Those are our major muscle movers in the lower body. And so if you can work those and keep those alive, they're actually going to keep you healthy when you go to grab something that falls out of the cabinet or something like that. And then the upper body, of course, our abdominals. So when we talk about abdominals, it's not just that 6-pack you're after. We talk about hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder, all the way around. I call it everyone's beautiful rectangle, right? So you can think of your rectangle with your appendages hanging off of it. So that's your core. As we age, atrophy, which is a muscular deterioration, that happens naturally. So we actually have to work against atrophy, and we don't have to go for hypertrophy, which is, I'm going to build up my muscles really big. But we do have to work at keeping our muscular integrity. And if we don't, we lose it. So that whole old adage, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And that is very true. And then the upper body, when you talk about your back, your chest, your biceps, triceps, and the arms, it's exactly what you're saying, right? You go to lift something big. If you are not worked in those muscles, if they have not been really treated well or trained, then likely the connective tissue is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, quote unquote, and it's going to hurt. So all of that can lead, if we're not working those areas in our body, it can really lead to a risk of injury, right? So our risk of injury goes up if we're not working that. So for those of you who don't have access to a gym, you can think of body weight. I mean, really, push-ups, pull-ups, squats, lunges. There you go.
I love that.
Yes. So
that
practical.
basic,
yes.
That was helpful for those of us that are like, yeah. Now tell me.
That's it. Squats, lunges, push-ups, pull-ups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I am so excited to continue this dialogue, and I know many of you want to hear more. But if you want to find out more about how to reshape your healthy body image, how to change your perspective, we have Marina coming and talking, was one of our breakout speakers at the Encourage Gathering on March 13th and 14th. So check out her breakout. You can register for that even today. We have a couple months left before the registration closes, and you can go to encouragegathering.com, or you can also follow her on Facebook if you're interested in learning more. Until next time, check out part 2. You'll definitely want to check it out next week and to hear more about these habits, and maybe even for those of us that are just pondering what you're hearing today, maybe listen to it again, see what sinks in, what did you notice, what is speaking to you directly. Thank you for joining us and being a leader committed to shrinking the integrity gap between the values we espouse and the values we actually live out in practice.